Please, you can hear me and if you can see my screen. Okay, so I can see a response already. Thank you. Confirm if you can see my screen also. All right. Thank you for responding. In yesterday's class, we were able to learn a lot about dictionaries, sets, and tuples. In yesterday's class also, we learned that dictionaries are unordered. We learned how to create a new dictionary. We learned how to add values, key pair values to dictionaries. And then we moved on to tuples. We saw how to create tuples, the methods that are used with tuples, and also at the end of the class, we were introduced to sets. We saw that sets contains unique values and you cannot have duplicates in sets. We also got to know yesterday that sets also have, the values are also unordered. And then we were also taught that sets, we use coily parentheses to create a new set apart from using the set function. Then I think most participants on site yesterday, they were like, oh, but we also use coily parentheses for dictionaries. And then we were able to show the difference, right? For dictionaries, the values in the coily parentheses will be a key value pair, but it is not so in a set. Somebody on site yesterday also asked that, oh, when you have a key in a dictionary, right? How can you add another key, right, with that same key name without overwriting the value of the previous key? So that is not possible because in a dictionary, you can only have unique keys. So you cannot have two keys with the same name. I think another person also asked that, oh, when you have created a key such that the name is email address, can you change it to address? The only thing you can do is that you can create a new key, and name is address, and then give the values of that previous key to it, then delete the previous key that you created. So moving on today, we are going to be learning about lists. We're going to be learning about lists and loops. So I'm sure this is not the first time we are hearing about lists in this class. We've used them in some of our exercises in this class. So before moving on to what we did today, if you have any question about what was done yesterday, you can drop it in the chat before we move on. And for those also asking, because I can remember somebody asking yesterday that this notebook should be shared. You have to submit your notebook actually to us. So this notebook is not going to be shared. We expect that everything that is in this notebook, you should have it replicated at your end. So you have to submit your notebook from your end, not that this is going to be sent to you. Okay, so I can see that we do not have any question from yesterday's class, which means that we all perfectly understand what was taught yesterday. So we're moving on to lists this morning. So I'm sure we all remember when our awesome facilitator taught us about strings. So just like strings are sequence, okay. Oh, it's pretty hard trying everything you have. Oh, I think you have a link in your WhatsApp group chat to submit your notebook. You don't have to worry making sure that you have everything here, right? Whatever you have at your end, you can submit it to us. And based on from what we did in yesterday's class, and our previous awesome facilitator, we actually wait for you to replicate it at your end before moving on. Please, this is just to be sure that you are trying everything that is being done in the class at your end. This is the only way to verify. So as we are telling you to type, make sure to type everything that we are doing in the class and run it at your end. Okay, so moving on, you can remember that strings are a sequence of characters. So lists are also a sequence of objects, and just like we learned in a dictionary, tuples and sets, they can hold variety of data types. While unlike dictionaries and sets, a list is ordered. We know dictionaries are unordered, sets are also unordered. So a list is ordered, and just as we learned when we were doing strings, we learned about indexing. No, sets are unordered. Oh, let me share my slide for yesterday. And that will be the dictionaries. Sets are unordered, please. So I'm sure you can see that from yesterday's notes. Sets are unordered, but the only thing is that they contain unique elements. They contain unique elements. You can't have duplicates in sets from what we did yesterday. You can't have duplicates in a set. So sets are unordered. Dictionaries also are unordered. Oh, maybe I was trying to answer someone else on site yesterday. Sorry about that. Sets are unordered because we had two sets of participants yesterday. So we had on-site participants and we had online participants. So you might have heard that in error. Okay, so thank God I did a revision this morning. Okay, so moving on to lists. Okay, so I'm sure we can see my screen now. So just like you can perform indexing and then slicing with strings, you can also do that with lists. So yesterday we learned that to create a new dictionary, you need curly braces. To create new set also, you can either use your set function or the curly braces. For lists, to create a new list, you want to use the square braces. So at your end, you want to create a new list. You can give it any variable name that you wish. You can give it any variable name, A list, B list, my list, anything you like. And then you put a square parenthesis. So to create this list. So what you just did now is that you created an empty list. So if you check what we have in this A list that you just created, for those that are saying they are not able to replicate this at your end, please, I would always confirm before we move on to the next thing, if you have been able to do this at your end before moving on. So you can see that we have an empty list. We have an empty list. So to check the type of this empty list, we know we have to use the type function. Okay, please, can you confirm if you can see my screen? Okay, great, because I thought somebody said it was blank. All right. So moving on, we all know that to check the data type of the data contained in a specific variable, we have to use type, right? The type function. So when you use the type function for this, you see that you get a list. You get a list given back as your result. So now let's now create a new list with actual values in it. So creating a new list with actual values in it, you can create a new list with another new variable name, anything you want. You can name it my list, as you can see here on my screen, and you can also name it any variable name. Let's say list 1, list 2. Then you input the values 1, 2, 3 in a square parenthesis. So let's run this. And then, of course, we know that to see what is contained in a particular variable, we can use my list. So you can use my list and then, or whatever you named this at your end, and then you'll be able to see the content of this new list. So before moving on, I would like to confirm if we have all been able to create a new list at our end, and then we've added values to it, and then you've printed the content of this, you've accessed the content of this new list that you created. So if you are having errors, any error doing that, let me know in the chat. But if you've been able to do that, you can just type done in the chat box. Okay, so I can see Peace saying done. Okay, I can see Ime Inyang. I hope that pronunciation is correct, saying done. I can see Godwin. All right, so great to see that most of us have been able to do that. So now we explained that a list can contain multiple data types. So a list can contain multiple data types. So you can see that this new list that you want to create now is containing two data types, which are a string and integers. So it's containing strings and also containing integers. So create another list, list 2, containing these two different data types, A, B, C, and then numbers 1, 2. And we know that to also see the contents of this list, right, you just have to type the name of the variable that you gave to it, and then you see the contents of the list. So also check the type. You have to use your type function, and then you see that you get what? A list, because this list was created by what? Enclosing it in, all right, great one, by enclosing it in a square parenthesis. Okay, so moving on. Now we are now assigning for this list, new list that we want to create now. We are assigning a variable A, a value of 100. So at your end, you just like you can see on my screen, you assign a variable A value of 100, a variable B a value of 200, and a variable C a value of 300. So after doing that, you now want to put this variable name. So instead of putting the values, right, you are inputting the variable names into this list that you are creating, and then you are now even adding numbers into the list. Now, if you run this and then you want to see the content of this list, you won't see A, B, C. That is what we want you to see here. So you won't see A, B, C. It is the value that is contained in that variable. So we all know what a variable is. That it's more like like a box. We have something in it. It's just a placeholder, and then we have a value in it. So it is that value that is contained in that variable that is going to be printed. So which you can see on my screen. So before moving on to the next thing, indexing and slicing. So I would like to confirm if we all have been able to do that at our end. You created 3 new variables, A, B, C. You assigned new values to them. And then instead of using the values themselves to create a new list, you use the variable name instead. And then you had some integers to it. All right, great one. So in case you are not done, please let me know. In case you are having errors, please let me know. I want all of us to be on the same page. Any errors you might be having, don't forget to drop it on the chat. We only have one set of participants today. Everybody's joining online. So any question you might have, please drop it on the chat box. All right, so I can see that we all are ready for the next stage of this class. So we've seen how to create a list. We've seen how to check if a specific data type is a list. We know that if we want to create a list now in this class, everybody knows that, oh, we have to use what? A square parenthesis to do that. So moving on to indexing and slicing, which is not new to us because we've seen how to do this with strings. So I'll just be giving an introduction, and then we'll have a lot of classwork. So we'll see how you can remember what you were taught in the previous class. So now we are creating a new list containing only strings now. You can see this list that we are creating contains a string A, B, C, and D. So you create a new list. You can name it what you like. Give it A, letter A, letter B, letter C, and letter D. But you know that you would not just do this without putting quotes. If you do not put quotes and then you just put A, B, C, D, you would have error because Python is going to throw up a name error and tell you that it doesn't know what A is. So you know that you have to put quotes to tell Python that, okay, this is a string on each of those letters. So A, B, C, D, and you put quotes on each of them. So now let's run this. And let's say now we want to see the letter contained in the second index. Want to see the letter contained in the second index. We know that indexing in Python rather, starts from 0. So we have 0, 1, 2. So we know that the letter contained in the second index is what? C, is C. So in the same vein, if you want to see the letter contained in the first index, what would that be? So that would be a classwork at your end. If you want to see the letter contained in the first index, what are you going to do and how are you going to do it? So let me see that code in the chat once you are done. And you can just copy it from your Jupyter notebook and then paste it in the chat. You want to see the letter contained in the first index. Great one. I can see that we all no, because I said first index. You know, the first index that starts from what? 0. So it will be A, not B, exactly. So that's what I said, the first index. You know, in Python, counting starts from 0, not 1. So I can see Mayowa using negative indexing. Great one. We know we have -1, -2, -3, and then -4. So that also will be correct. So great to see that we all are following. Yes, so we can do that using the name of this list. So we'll see it at the first index. So, and then if we want to use negative indexing, just like Mayowa did, so we still get A as the value returned. So let's say we want to see only the second and third index, want to get B and C. So let's say I want to get B and C. So to do that, we know we'll have to slice this list. We'll have to slice this list to get B and C. So we know we want to start from 1. And then to get B and C, you know you won't end at 2, right? You have to end at 3, a number greater. So 3, then you get your B and C. Yes, okay, great responses. Great to see that we all are following. So to get B and C, we would slice the list. All right, great one. So last classwork, final classwork, before moving on to the next section for today's class. Let's say I want to get B, C, D. How would I slice this list to get B, C, D? B, C, D. How will I slice this list to get B, C, D? Great one. We know that if you do not specify any number at the end of your slicing after the semicolon, it takes it from the previous number that you specified to the end of the list. All right. So great to see that we all are following. Okay, so I'm sure that in this class, we all now know how to create a new list. We know how to, we've added values and created a new list. We know how to check if a specific variable has a data type of a list. We know how to index a list, and we know how to slice through a list. All right, so moving on. Yes, it is also correct. Samuel Odunsonwo, it also works. It also works and is correct. Umar, that will not give you BCD. That won't give you BCD. Yes, for Samuel, that is correct. Yes, thank you, Azan. Yes. Okay, so moving on to the next session for today's class. If you have any question, please do not hesitate to drop it in the chat. Okay, so I can see Umar doing this. So let's see. Of course, that will not work. And I'm sure you must have gotten an error at your end, because that is not how to slice a list. So Umar, the correct way to do this will be the way that most people mentioned in the chat. You want to use a semicolon to slice through. So if we want to see the length, Python has a built-in function known as length. So it allows you to see the length of a string, the length of a list. So you can use this to see the length of a string, the length of a list. So let's say we have a string, right? We want to know how many characters are contained in it. It is going to show us that, okay, this specific string has this number of characters. And if we check what we have in my list, let's see the content of my list at my end here. So we have A, B, C, D for my list. So originally it's going to return 4. So it's going to return 4. So you can see that this my list here, this variable name does not have an underscore like the previous one. So my list, then I want to check the length of this list. This is going to tell us that, oh, we have 4 contents, right, in this 0, 1, 2, 3, which makes that 4. Then for the string also 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that means we have 6. All right, great one. I can see that we are all moving at the same pace in this class. All right. Yes, the length works. Length works is going to show you the number of content that we have in in a list or in a string. So methods, we've seen some dictionary methods yesterday. We also saw some for tuples. They are actions that you can call of a function. So, and I'm sure we are all used to, in yesterday's class, I think we saw count and we saw index for tuples. So, and we can remember one thing that was coherent, like consistent among this. We see that they always have what? A parenthesis at the end of this method. So you must always call a parenthesis to execute a method. So let's say you want to add a number. Oh, you've created your list, right? And you still want to add things. You still want to add things to this list. We know normally, whenever we create a list, let's say a list of some things that you need to buy, most times you still want to add. Most times you still want to add things to this list, right? So let's say you've created a list of numbers 1, 2, 3, and then you forgot to add a number 6. So how do you do this? How do you update this list such that it would contain the number 6? So not to worry, Python has a function for that, which is known as append. So everybody at your end, create a new list, 1, 2, 3. So if you check the content of my list now, my list, so you see that we have 1, 2, 3. So create a new list. Your list will be equals to 1, 2, 3. Of course, with square parentheses, So after creating the new list, check the content and to confirm what you have there. So after confirming, now we've created the list and then we forgot to add a new number, which is 6. We forgot to add 6 to it when we were creating our list. So how do we do this? Python has a method for that known as append. So append, and then when you check the content of the list that you created, so when you check the content of the list that you are created, you see that you now have what? 6, the value that you forgot initially. So you now have 6 in your list that you've created before. Okay, so I'm sure we all have been able to do that. We created a new list and then we appended a new value to that list. And then you check the contents of that new list that you created to see if this list has been updated, right, with the new value. So if you're having error, yes, what if you want 6 to be the first number? So we are still going to get there. Yes, this only works with one value. We are still going to get there where you can add multiple values exactly to the list. So let us go one step at a time. So in this class today, we are going to get there. We'll see how to add multiple values to the list, and we'll see how to add it at specific index, just like Johnson asked. What if you want it to be the first number? That is, you want it to be at the first index. So we'll see how to do that in today's class. So let's just take it one step at a time. And then when we are done, if your question has not been answered, you can still reach out to me. Okay, so moving on. Let's say you want to remove a value from a list. You know, our list now contains 1, 2, 3, 6. So let's say you want to remove a value from a list. So you can just use pop, my list dot pop. So my list dot pop. But what this pop is going to do, if you do not specify anything in it, is that it is going to remove the last value in the list. And the last value in this list of ours is what? 6. So if you check the value of my list again, you see that we are back to what? 1, 2, 3. So my list dot pop, without specifying any index in it, is going to return it is going to remove rather the last element in that list. So my list.pop, you can see that it removes the last element in the list. All right. So I'm sure we all have been able to create a new list, 1, append a new value to this list, 2, and then we'll see the content of the new list, and then we'll see that, wow, this value has been appended to the list. And then okay, so we've created a new list, appended a new value to the list, and then we've seen the new content of this list to see that, oh, our new value has been appended to our list. Great one. Then what if we want to remove a value from a list? We've seen how to use pop, the pop method. But we've seen that using pop without specifying any index in it, we remove what? The last value. So what if we are not interested in removing the last value, right? What if we're interested in removing the first value? So my list.pop 0. So you can see my list.pop 0 is telling me that, oh, remove the value at the first index. And then when you check my list, you can see that the content of my list is now, yes, Olanrewaju, you pop 3 to be removed, but it removes the last value. That is because pop works with index, not the exact value itself. So if you pop 3 to be removed, it is counting it as index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3. And we can see that the last value is still at what? Index 3. So that is why you have the last value being removed, Olanrewaju. So let's get this. So let me run this again. So this is what we have now, right, in my list. So what Olanrewaju did was now my list.pop 3, thinking that it is the value 3 in this my list that will be removed. No, it is going to count from 0, in this my list here now. 1 is at what? Index 0. 2 is at index 1. 3 is at index 2. And 6 is at what? Index 3. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3. So my list.pop 3 will still pop what? 6 for us. And if our list had more elements than this, you not specifying anything in pop will still pop what? The last value. So I hope you understand that now, Olanrewaju. So pop works with the index, not the exact elements in the list. So that is what I want us to see. And we know that append would only what? Append a value, right, to our list. So now what if we want to delete, right? So I'm creating a new list now. I'm creating a new list to contain. So I'm sure we all understand how pop works. So we know that if you do not specify any index in pop, it is going to what? Remove the last index. While if you specify an index in pop, it is going to remove what? That number at that specific index. So pop works with the index, not the element in the list itself. So moving on, now we want to create a new list called 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, great one. Now we are creating a new list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So just like pop works with index, delete also works with what? Index. So delete the element at index 1, 0, 1. So it is going to delete what? 2. So if you run this, you will see that you would have what? 1, 3, 4, 5. So if you do this now, you see that it would remove the element at index 1. And normally we know that when you are counting the index in Python, we start from what? 0. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're not just like pop. Just like pop is going to remove the element at a specific index that you gave to it. So remove element at index 1, 0, 1 is going to move what? 2, and then you get 1, 3, 4, 5 as your value. What if I want to remove the elements at index 3? So how would you do that? I want to remove the element at index 3. You can either use delete or pop. Let me see your responses in the chat. Now we've created a new list 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm asking you to remove the element at index 3. Yes, remove the element at index 3. How would you do that if you want to remove the element at index 3? Johnson, okay, what part do you not understand, Johnson? Okay, I can see great response from Ogunaike saying delete. Okay, that means I'll take it that the list that you created at your end, you created it as admin list. All right, so want to remove the element at index 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. Yes, want to delete the element at index 3. So we know that we can either do this using what? Pop or delete. So somebody will now have a question that's, oh, what is the difference between delete and pop? We are coming to that. So my list. So we know that indexing in Python starts from what? 0. So element at 0 is what? 1. At 1 is what? 2. At 2 is what? 3. At 3 is what? 4. So delete my list elements at what? 3. So once we do this and then we check my list, so you can see that okay, so let's first print the contents of my list. So my list, what my list contains now, my list. So you can see that now, okay, from here, I want it from 1, 3, 4, 5, exactly. My list contains 1, 3, 4, 5 now. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So element at index 3 is now what? 5. So 0, 1, 2, 3. You know that initially we first remove the element as what? Index 1. So which is 2. So the new content of my list is now what? 1, 3, 4, 5. Now we want to remove the element as what? Index 3. So 0, 1, 2, 3, which is what? That means 5 will be removed. And then that is why you can see that the new content of my list is now what? 1, 3, 4. So let's now say, that's why you must check what's the new content of the variable so that you can understand what is going to exactly. Okay, so great one. I can see that we all understand the difference between pop. Sorry, we all understand how to use pop rather and delete. So why to do this? If we are using this initial my list and then we delete 0, 1, 2, 3, that's 3, the element at index 3, we can see that we have 4 removed, which is what? 1, 2, 3, 5. So delete and pop works with what? Index. They work with the index. So now, one major difference between pop. Okay, please use pop so that you can see it. All right, so I'll use pop. One major difference between between delete and pop is that for delete, you can slice. You know, it's not every time that you only want to delete one element. You might want to remove more than one. You might want to remove more than one element. So for delete, you can slice through the list rather. So let's create a new list now. List 1, so that we will not get confused. And I'll give it. So I'm giving it numeric numbers from 1 to 6. So now I want to delete elements from index 1. So I want to delete elements from index 1 all through to 2. You know that doing this 1 to 3 will not get to this last number here. Instead, it's going to get to the number before. So for this list 1, so I'm running list 1 now. And then 0, 1, 2. So we all know that for this, we are going to have what? 2 and 3 removed from list 1. So we run this, we can see that, of course, we just have what? 1, 4, 5, 6. So that's the major difference between. Oh, Kayode, maybe you are using capital letter D. Make sure you are using small letter D, D-E-L. Small letter D, small letter D, yes. Okay, so for Olutayo, you want me to use pop? I would get that. I'll get back to that. ICMAP, please, you are lost. You want to. Okay, so I'll just come again. So if you are still getting error, I can't remember the name again. Maybe it's an environment issue, but normally it should work. Are you using Colab or Jupyter Notebook? It might be an environment issue, so I might want to settle that after the class. So we've learned how to use pop. We know that for pop, so I'll just come again. We all understand append. We know that append would append a specific value, right, to the list, to the end of the list, just like we saw here. So now we've learned about pop. We know that pop, if you do not put anything, any index, if you do not specify any index in pop, it is going to remove the last element in your list. Very good. So if you do not specify, for the person that wants me to explain pop again, if you do not specify any elements in pop, it is going to remove the last element in the list. If you want an element at a specific index to be removed, then you have to note the index. Then you have to put the index right in pop. You want an element at a specific index to be removed. then you have to specify that specific index in POP. Sorry? I'm sure you can still hear me. So if you want an element at a specific index to be removed, right, you have to specify it in POP. So moving on to delete, the delete still works the same as POP, right? You want an element at a specific index to be removed. You just specify it in delete, just like we have seen. But the only difference between delete and POP is that for delete, you can slice, say that, okay, you want an element from this index to a specific index to be removed, just as you can see here. So you can remove more than one element with delete, but with POP, you can only remove one element. So I'm sure we all understand that. With delete, you can remove more than one element by specifying maybe where you want the deletion to start from and where you want it to end through a slice. And then for POP, you can only remove one element. So if you want all the values in a list to be removed, you want to make use of clear. It's clear, you can just remove all the values at once in your list. Okay, so if you have any question before we move on, I know that I've not answered the question of adding multiple values at once to a list. So we are still going to get to that. So if you have any questions about POP, delete, and then clear, you can let me know in the chat. Exactly. Ronke, you probably got that because of the previous value in your Ronix list. So it is depending on the value that you have in your Ronix list. That would specify the values that will be deleted. So ICMA, I'm sure you are no longer lost, and then you understand append, delete, pop, and how to use them. Same thing for every one of us in the class. So Ronke, run that Ronix list, run it again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then remove the from index 1, that's 2, 3. You should get yes, you should get 1, 4, 5, 6. Run it again. You probably made an error somewhere and you didn't know. So run it again to be sure. Run Ronix list again to be sure that that is the actual content of that list of yours. And then you can now delete that. You would see that you should get 1, 4, 5, 6. So you can confirm that at your end. So yes, please be sure to fill the attendance link once it is dropped by 11 a.m. because at exactly 12 p.m. The form would close for attendance. Okay, so moving on. Let's say we created a new list now. One to 7. We created a new list with numbers 1 to 7. And then we want to reverse the order of this list, right? We want to see from, okay, so that you won't get confused. Let me do this. Okay, so I have some random numbers in a list. In this new list that I just created now, I have 1, 10, 16, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have that now in this new list that I just created. So let's say I want to reverse the order of this list. Like I want to see from 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 16, 10, 1. Note that we are not sorting yet. To sort, we need to make use of another function. To sort, we need to make use of another function. We are just reversing. We want to see it from the back. So reverse, and then you can see that we can see 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 16, 10, and 1. So you can see that reverse method, it helps to what? Reverse the content of a list. So you see it from the so you are going to see this list from the end to the beginning. So I'm sure we all understand this. We have a new list and then we reverse the order of this list. And you should note that this action this reverse method, it works on the list in itself. So if you say new list is equal to, if you say new list is equal to my list dot reverse, if you do this, and then let's say now I want to see what is contained in new lists, you can see that nothing was returned. Nothing was returned because this reverse method, it performs the operation on my list itself. So if you want to see, what's the impact of the reverse function, you have to check the list that you used it on. So you have to check the list that you used it on, not that you save it into a new variable. So let's now say, you know that this is the new content of my list. So my list now contains, so my list now contains 7, 6, 5, 4, we have reversed it. So let's now say that you want to sort this list. You want to sort it. You want to sort our list. So if you check the content of my list, you can see that it has been sorted. So, the initial content of my list that we had was what? 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, this scattered. But now we want to sort. Okay. Okay, I think we can continue now. All right, so to sort our reverse list, so our list now contains these numbers are not sorted. So then we can see that this has been sorted for us in ascending order. Yeah, so we can see that this has been sorted for us in ascending order. So we've seen how to use reverse, we've seen how to use sort, and previously we've learned how to use append, pop, and delete. Okay, so what if we add our reverse into this? What happens? Okay, so what if we add reverse equals to true to this? Let's see what happens. So you can see that this list is now sorted in what? Descending order. So it is now sorted in descending order. So we see now to use reverse on its own, reverse with sort, sort on its own, and then pop, delete, append. So now, based on what we did before, when we were appending, so let's now create a new list. Let's create a new list. Okay, so you didn't get the idea of the sort. Okay, so I'll just go back to that. Okay, so I'm sure we all understand reverse, how reverse works. So let's just run through that again. We have my list and we have this. Then we want to reverse this list. That is, we have 1, 10, 16, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They want to see it from 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 10, 16, 10, 1. So now my list does reverse. You know that we are going to see the elements from the end of the list to the beginning. So that is how reverse works. So now, if you now want to sort the list, what sorting does is that you are going to see the values being arranged from the lowest value to the highest value. That is in ascending order. So you know that this is the content of my list now. My list contains 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 16, 10, 1. The values are not sorted, right? So my list dot sort would sort them in ascending order. We sort it in ascending order. But what if you do not want to see these values from you don't want to see it from the lowest to the highest, maybe you want to see it from the highest to the lowest. And one thing I also said again was that you should not save it to a new variable, that this works on the method works on the list itself. If you save it to a new variable, just like we saw before, you would not get any results. So now if we now say my list dot sort, and then we had reverse equal to true to it. So now we now want to get the contents of my list. Then you can see that this now is now in reverse and sort. Oh, do you get that now? I think Olarewaju and Azan. Do you get the concept of the, I should zoom in, okay. Uh so I'm sure you can see my screen better now. Okay, great. Oh, sorry about joining late. Olushola. I think the recording is available. The recording is available. You can always exactly Olayanju. And we know how to use reverse on its own. So Olushola, if you joined late, you can always watch the recording. I think the recording should be made available so that you can watch where you missed. Okay, ordinary reverse. For reverse method, okay, so we have this list now with these values. My list 1, 10, 16, 2, 3. So you can see how we have it on my screen. If you do my list dot reverse, it will just make sure that the values at the end, they are now the ones what's at the front. Then the ones at the front, they will not be at the back. So this is it, but it is not sorted. So when you use the reverse method on its own, it is not sorted. It will just make sure, put it in the reverse order. Oh, we have things normally this way in our list, then reverse it, just turn it upside down. So I think you understand just like that. Oh, equal to false. Olatayo, you might want to explain for that. Equal to false, where why would you put equal to false? Is it as a value in your list? So I'm sure we all understand the concept of reverse, sort, and then using reverse inside sort now. So if you still do not understand that, let me know in the chat. Okay, so moving on to the question that somebody asked the other time when we treated append. You know, when you append a value to the list, the value gets appended to the last position. So let's see that again here. So you can create a new list now. Create a new list. 20, 15, 10, 114. Create a new list. Okay, Olubisi, you think the reverse was sorted in descending order. Reverse with salt is what was sorted. If it contains strings, Okay, so let's take the question one after the other. For Olubisi, I think the reverse was sorted in descending order. This is it. So Olubisi, can you see what we have here? We have 1, 10, 16. We have this as our initial list, right? And then we use reverse without sort. Note that we used it without sort. And then when you run it again, you can see what we have, right? You can see that it is not sorted, right? You can see that it is not sorted. It only becomes sorted when you use, and what you're even using is not even the reverse method. You are using sort method. You're just saying reverse equals to true. So Olubisi, do you get that? Reverse, when you are using reverse equals to true, it is when it sorts in descending order. You have to sort either in ascending or descending order. But using reverse method, the reverse method is just like turns it upside down. Yes, so I'm sure we all get that now. So moving on, we understand sort, reverse, and how to do all that. So moving on, just like someone asked the other time, we have my list. Now we are creating a new list now. We learned before that when you do append, it is going to add it to the what? To the end of the list. You can see, so it is being added to the end of the list. So what if you want to add a new item to a specific index, right, in the list? I think somebody also asked that. If you want to add it to a specific index, so you know that you have to make use of what? Insert. So my list does insert. So what this is doing is that it would insert middle in the third index. So we have 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's going to insert the value middle in the third index. So you can see that that one works. So instead of append, that just adds it to the end. So when you use insert, you have to specify the specific index that you want it to get added to, and then what value you want to add to that index. So you can see that that works. So somebody also asked that what if we want to add more than one value, right? More than one value at once. So let's say you have a specific list 1, ABC, and then you have a specific list 2 containing like EFG. So you can add every other thing you want to add to the list 2. So you can just use extend. So just like we saw that reverse and sort are in place, extend is also in place. So once you do list 1, so let me run this, then you check your list 1. You can see that this one now contains all the values, right? A, B, C, E, F, G. So I'm sure we all understand the concept of insert. So what insert will do is that, oh, you do not want the value, a new value you want to add to your list. You don't want it to be added to the end of the list, right? So you want it to be added at a specific index. So you use insert, just as you can see on my screen. But if you want to add more than one value, like you can add everything to a list and then you use what? Extend. So list.extend, then you see that your initial list will be updated with these new values. Yes. So that should also work. Okay, so I can see that most of us have been able to get that. So moving on. So just like we saw yesterday that we can have dictionary of a dictionary. Now we can also have what? A list in a list. So we can have a nested list. So if you create a new list with these values, 1, 2, 3, and then you have this list at index 3. So let's run this. So you have a new list at you have a list in a list at index 3. So you can see that when you index it, just like we have done before and just like we've done yesterday, 0, 1, 2, 3, we know that we get the value of the list in a list. So I'll be sharing all this as assignments because I know that we are already bosses of lists. So we'll be having an assignment today, and the assignment would be on a list in a list. So you didn't get how to insert in the middle. So you're not actually inserting in the middle. You are inserting at a specific index, please. You're not inserting in the middle. You're inserting at a specific index. We are just inserting a string middle at this index 3. So if you want to insert it as another index, say 2 or 0 or 1, you can insert it anywhere. So you just have to do this. Your list.insert that. All right, so moving on. Yes, I did not give any assignment yesterday, but I'll be giving today, which will be on a list in a list. So we're moving on to loops. Yeah, I explained extend. So if you have a list, an initial list, right? And you had different values that you want to add to that list, you can just add the rest to a list. I think someone had asked when I was explaining append, someone asked, how do you add multiple values? So you can add everything to a list and then use extend. And then when you check your initial list, you would see that it has been updated. So one thing I also want us to see, I think that I've not touched before going to loops, is our assignment for today's class will majorly be on slicing. So let's say we have a list 2, which is this, and then I want to replace the value at index 1. So 0, 1, I want to replace the value at index 1 with A. No, I've not. Okay. So I think this. Oh, I explained this. I said just like we can have a dictionaries of a dictionary, you can also have a list of a list. So let's now say we now want to see the list, just like our normal indexing, right? So we know that 1 is contained at index 0, 2 is contained at index 1, 3 is contained at index 2, and this entire list is contained at what? Index 3. So to see that, we know we have to make use of new list and then our index. So I'm sure you get that now. So what I was trying to explain was that assuming we created another list EHG, then we want to change the value at index 1 to A. So if we want to change the value at index 1 to A, we can just take the list and that index. And then when we check our list 2, we can see that the value as index A, we've overwrite it, has been overwritten to what? A. That's changed from H to A. You're welcome. Yes. So we'll be having this an assignment on a nested list. So that would be the assignment for today. So moving on to loops. We've done a lot with lists. So we are moving on to loops. I would the assignment will be sent to your WhatsApp group. Yes, thank you. So moving on to loops. For today, we'll be talking about while loop. We'll also be talking about for loop, and we'll be talking about break, continue, and then we'll see how to also use this. All right, so starting from while loop. Okay. So a loop would for a while loop, it is has been created such that a condition that you put in it would continue while whatever thing that you put in it will continue while a condition is true. So it is called a loop because it would get whatever instruction that you put in it would occur over again and again until a specific condition that you stated is no longer met. So how do we create a while loop in Python? So let's say A is equal to 1. So you are now creating a new variable. So please, in your notebook, you can start a new section for loops. So A equals to 1. Now we are creating a new variable, right? A equals to 1. And the syntax, that is the structure for creating a while loop in Python, is while A is less than 10, print A is less than 10. So this is the structure for creating it. So we note that we created a new variable. A is equal to 1. We created a new variable. A is equal to 1. And then note that this new variable that we created, it is outside the loop. So now we are now creating a new while loop that while the variable a is less than 10, keep printing what? A is less than 10. And in the loop, we are now increasing the value of a. A will be equal to a plus 1. So a is 1. So let's also print the value of a so you can see what happens each time. So when you run this, and please note that whenever the structure to write this while loop in Python, while a is less than 10, you have to give 4 spaces. So you have to count 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, so that you won't end up having an error. So at your end, you want to type a new variable a should be equal to 1, and then a loop while a is less than 10, then you want to count 4 spaces before putting the print. A is less than 10, print a, and then now we are now incrementing the value of a. So you can see what is happening here. Note that this a equals to 1 is outside the loop. So that is what while is going to use. But then it will keep on incrementing a inside the loop. So whatever you put inside this while, that after counting 4 spaces is inside the while. Like this print statement is inside the while loop. This second print statement is also inside the while loop. Then a equals to a plus 1 is also inside the while loop. But if you just put a outside the while loop, then this is what? Outside the while loop, you are still going to get the value of 1. So the value of a initially defined is what? 1. Now we are now stating a condition that while a is less than 10, print what? A is less than 10. Keep printing a is less than 10. So the value that was outside was what? 1. So in the result, you can see that 1 is what? Less than 10. 8 was still 1 here. So that is why you can see that 1 is less than 10. But now, we now put another increment at the end that a should be what? A plus 1. So a was 1 initially. We are now adding what? 1 to it. So a is now what? 2. So it will still check the condition again. Is 2 less than 10? Yes, 2 is less than 10. It will print it. It will keep on adding 1 to the new value of a until it gets to 9. When it gets to 9, to add 1 to 9, and then you will see that we have what? The new value of a is now what? 10. Then you see that, oh, 10 is no longer what? Less than 10. And then the loop what? End. So the same thing happens also here. Okay, so the same thing happens here too. Now we set a new variable just like we did here, a equal to 1. So now we are setting a new variable, what? X is equal to what? 0. So we are now saying while x is less than 3. So while x is less than 3, what? Continue printing what? X. So now we are now adding 1 to x. So when we print this, so you can see our result. Initially, when we are starting the loop, x was what? 0. So that's why you can see that the value of x is what? 0. Then when it gets here to this 1, 2, 3, to this last line here, you can see that 1 will be added to x, right? And the new value of x will now be what? 1. So the new value of x will now be what? 1. Then it will check the condition and say, oh, 1 is still less than 3. Then the loop would still continue. Then the new value of x is now what? 1. 1 will be added to x again, and x will now be what? 2. It's going to check again. Oh, 2 is still less than 3. Great one. It's going to add print x is currently again. Then the new value of x is now what? 2. Then this is now going to add what? 1 to the value of x again. And the value of x will now be what? 3. 3 is no longer less than 3. Then the loop will be what? Exited. And you know that you have to be careful with while loop, because while a condition is true, okay, so for while the condition is true, the instruction given in the while loop would always be executed. So depending on the condition that you state in your while loop, you might make a mistake such that you enter an infinite loop such that it will keep on running. All you just have to do is stop your kernel, come to kernel here, and then shut down and stop the kernel. One thing I want you to have in mind for while loop is that while the condition is true, right, any instruction given in the while loop would keep on running, just like we can see here. So x equals to 0, then while x is less than 3, keep on running this. And in the last line, we keep on not incrementing the value of x. For instance, now, if we did not increment the value of x here, if we didn't increment the value of x here, you know that x would always be less than 3. And we would even run into what? An infinite loop with that. But because we were incrementing the value of x here, that is why we were able to exit the loop, because at some point, x was now what? Greater than 3. I think you get that now. Okay, you want me to scroll up? Okay, so for those that want to see this, here you have it. Okay, thank you, Ogunaike, for sending that to the chat. So for those that want to see that, you have that on the chat already. So for a while loop, the way it works, right, is that while a specific condition is true, while a specific condition is true, whatever instruction you put in the while loop would keep on running. And then you should know that this is the syntax, this is the syntax, what I've highlighted, to create a while loop. So while your condition, then the instruction that you want it to perform will be inside the while loop. For this now, we want to keep on printing numbers from what? 0 to a value less than 3. So we want to keep on printing numbers rather from a value 0 to a value less than what? 3. So that's why we are now doing while x is less than 3, keep on printing the number. We know we are starting from 0. That's because we want to keep on printing numbers from 0 to a value less than 3 all at once. So now x equals to 0, which is the number we are starting from. And while our value is less than 3, so we only want to see what? 0, 1, 2. So yes. So let's have a classwork now. What if, here now, we wanted to print numbers from 0 to a value less than 2. So what if I want you to print using the while loop, print numbers from 2 to a value less than 6. So let's say you want to print numbers at once from 2 to a value less than 6. How would you do that? All right, so great one. Ogunaike. So I can see that we are getting the hang of while loop. So if you need answer to that, you can check the chat. So I explained before that if we did not put a condition, right? If we now put a condition in our while loop, looking at what we did before, where we just wanted to print numbers from 0 to a value less than 3. No, Adeniji, I didn't say you should print values from 0 to a value less than 3. I said you should print values from 2 to a value less than 6. So you want to correct that, Adeniji. Oh, it didn't run here. Oh, were you encountering error? Yes, Lawal. I can see that. Great one. Good to see that you all are getting the hang, you're understanding this. So maybe Lawal, for you saying you didn't run, what kind of error you are having? Were you having, right? If you tell us the error you are having, we would know how to solve that. So I was explaining that for a while loop, you know, our condition here was that x is less than 3. Assuming we were not incrementing the value of the x here, x would have always been at 0, and we would not have been able to leave this while loop. It will keep on running. So in that scenario, right, you can either stop, you can stop the kernel to get out of the loop. So one keyword we want to learn about now is break. How do you break out of a loop? So you can do that by using our break keyword. So can you do that using the break keyword now? So now we now want to print numbers from 0 to a value what less than 9. Did you use print? That's Abiba. Did you use print? Abiba, did you use print? And there must be something wrong somewhere, right? Maybe you want to restart your notebook and then check what is wrong with your environment, because you can see here other people that sent their code. Yeah, it is running perfectly. So there's something wrong somewhere with your environment. So Adeniji, were you having an error or your value didn't run at all? If you're having an error, let us know. Yeah, so you want to check if you were not having a syntax error, just like Louis is trying to tell you. Great one, Oluwatobi. I'm sure it's running at your end. And you want to make sure that your while is in lowercase, yes, just as Louis is trying to tell you. Make sure your W is in lowercase. So for Abiba, have you checked your environment? Because you said you were not having any error, so that we can know. Obisami, are you trying to say your value did not run at all, or your value was not showing? Adeniji is saying no error. So Adeniji also, you might want to use your check your environment, because okay, let me just send this in case you are having in case you forgot to use print, so that you can see your output. You might want to run this. Might want to run. Oh yes. You might want to run this at your end to be sure that, and be sure that you counted 4 spaces, that the print is inside the while loop. So check all that, debug, check for where your error is. That's what I mean by debug, so that you can solve that, because it should work. All right, so moving on to the break keyword. Now we want to print numbers from 0 to a value less than 10. And you can see that just like we've done before, we keep on adding what? 1, right, to the value of x. But now we are not putting a condition that if x is equal to 3, that is, if the value of x is 3, break. That is, this loop should stop. So instead of doing up to 9, just like we've seen before, once it gets to 3, like once x is equal to 3, it is going to what? Stop, right? It is going to stop. So that is why you can see that we only have 3 values here. That's why you can see that we only have 3 values here. You see, adding 1 to x, adding 1 to x, and adding 1 to x. So what the break keyword does is that if a condition is true, right, it's going to break out of your while loop, and then the initial condition that you put there would be overwritten as long as the condition for the break is true. So moving on, I think people are asking for the attendance link so that they can fill it. So for those that, oops, sorry. For those that were having issues with their environment, try to restart your notebook and then run what I sent to the chat to make sure that you did not make any errors when you were typing in the values. All right, so we've seen how to make use of break. Yes, exactly. It's just due to your environment, not the code, since you were not having any error. So moving on, for the break keyword, I explained that you can add it once you want a condition, such that when a condition is met, right, you want to break out of the loop. Just as we can see here, we want to print numbers. I'm sure as bosses that we have, we can print numbers from 0 to a value less than 9 by ourselves using while loop. So that is what is just occurring in this first part of this code. So you are printing numbers from 0 to a value less than what? 10. But now, you don't want all the numbers to get printed. you are now putting a condition such that if x is equal to 3, then you are breaking out of the loop. So once x is equal to 3, you want this loop not to run again. So that is what the break is doing. So you can see adding 1 to x, you can see it's being displayed 3 times. So sorry, for a for loop, we've seen how a while loop works. Like while giving a specific condition, the instruction in the while loop will always run, right, until the condition is no longer met. So while for a for loop, it goes through items that are in a sequence or any other iterable items. So what we've learned about strings, lists, tuples, dictionaries, we can use a for loop with it. The break is giving syntax error. Definitely, whenever you have syntax error, I explained to you that then the structure, the way you wrote it, is wrong. The structure of the code is wrong. Two things. Maybe you didn't write BREAK, everything in small letters, or maybe it is outside the if, or it's not in the condition, or maybe you didn't put a semicolon in your while. There could be different things causing the error. So make sure that it is exactly the same way. Your semicolon is there, both in the while and in the if. You put the parentheses in the print. So make sure you check everything. Yes, check your indentation. Make sure you count 4 spaces for the while. And then under the if, you also have 4 spaces. So check that. Yes, 2 equals to 2. So check everything. Make sure that it is working. Because syntax error is saying something is wrong with the structure of your code. So I can see that we have plenty of people helping out in the chat. So I'll just continue. Yeah, so for objects that we've learned before, string, list, tuples, we can use a for loop with them. So since the most current thing that we've learned now is a list, right? So let's say we have a new list. We have a list 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's say we are creating a new list now. One, 2, 3, 4, and then want to iterate through this list. So for every value in this list, want to multiply it by 2. You have a new list. So you want to raise it to the power of 2. So this list, 1, 2, 3, 4, you want to get a result such that you have 1, 4, 9, and 16. So what you just use is a for loop. So you can use a for loop for that. So we have a new list, this. So some people can say for I in my list, that is the syntax for using the for loop. So for I in my list, for value in my list, like this can be anything. You can give it anything for n in my list, for values in my list, for I in my list. Just make sure that the list name is correct. Then print. Now we are raising each value in this my list that we just created here, containing 1, 2, 3, 4. We are raising each of them to the power of what? 2. So you can see what we have. We have 1, 4, 9, and 16. So you can see this is just to tell us that we can use yes, this is just to tell us that we can use anything here for I, for val, for anything. You can see for totally made up here in my list. For made up, anyone, you can use anything here. But just make sure that your list name is there. And then we are printing made up. So you can see that now we did not change the value of the list, right? The value in the list is still was 1, 2, 3, 4. We just use our for loop to iterate such that we can get the value in the list raised to the power 2. But you can see that we are not saving it to another list, right? The value of my list still remains the same. So this is another example for num in my list. Now you're not saying they should print each number in this my list. You know, my list contains 1, 2, 3, 4, but with a space. So for any of the values, for values in my list, now we now want to, for num in my list, you can see we are using num now. Before we use made up, before we use val. So that is to tell you that it can be anything. For I in my list, most people like using I. For I in my list, for N in my list, for J, as long as the list is there. So whatever you like, you can give it to it. For now, we are not saying for num in my list. Print what? Each num, and then what? Add a space to it. So that is why you can see that a space is being added, right, to each number in my list. Now we are saying, so now using this for loop again, we are still saying for num in my list, print I am in a for loop. So we know that how many numbers do we have in my list? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is why you can see that when you run this, you can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So for the first num in my list, you know, we are not saying print num. Assuming we put print num, it is going to show us, so I can put that on top. So I can put that on top. Assuming you say print num, right? We can see each of the number in my list. So print num will give us the number in the my list. But now we didn't say print num, we're just saying print I am in a for loop. So for the first number which is in my list, it will print for the first I am in a for loop. For the second number which is in my list, it is going to print what? I am in a for loop. For the third number which is in my list, it will print what? Another I am in a for loop. And then for the last number in my list, it is still going to print its own what? I am in a for loop. So I'm sure we all understand the concept of iterating through a list. If you're having errors, you can share it in the chat box. For those that have done theirs, you can help those that are having errors solve their errors. So if you're having errors, don't hide it to yourself. Drop it in the chat box and you should get a solution. So just like we can iterate through lists. Yes, so the last one I also want us to see is range. So we can do for I in range. I'm sure we are all used to length already. So for I in range length of our list, which is what? My list. So you can see that this one is just giving us the index of that list. If you want to see the list itself, the values in the list itself, rather, you have to say my list, then I. So you are going to see the values. All right, so this would be relate Ime Yang. So what we are just saying is for I in the range of the length of your list, print what each values in your list. Okay, so just as we have seen that lists can work with strings, so with for loop can work with lists, they can also work with strings. So we have this string. Everybody in this class, as the bosses that we have. Oh, sorry about that. Olubisi. I think some of the code for the for loop have been sent to the chat. So what for loop just does is iteration. So you are just iterating, which is what we are still explaining. We've seen how for loops works with a list. We've seen how to iterate through a list with for loop. Now we want to see how to iterate through a list with string. So we are still in for loop. So this idea from the strings, that you can use it to also understand the one for our list. So for character in this is a string. So we have a specific string. This is a string. You can see it enclosed in quotes. We are not saying print each character. So you can see that each character will be printed. CHIS, everything will be printed. Even the space, you are going to see it there. And you know that this for character for can be anything. You can say for seeing, just like we saw when we were treating lists. We can say for seeing, then it is still going to give you so it is still going to give you values that we have in that string. But if you want to see it printed as you don't want to see CHIS like on different lines, you want to see this, you want to see is, you want to see a, you want to see string, right? For this, you can just always first split the string. So for word in, so we have a string. So we have a string. This is a string, right? So we are first splitting this string. We are first splitting it. So let's see what happens when you split so you don't get confused. So we have this string that we created and we saved it in a variable name, my string. Okay, so my string does split. So you can see what happens when you use the split. If you have any delimiter, any other delimiter that you want to split on, you can always specify it in split. But for now, we are using splits. I think by default, it should split on space. So that is why you can see that we are not saying this is a string. So you can see what is being displayed when you use the split keyword. So split method rather. So when you are not saying forward in my string does split, so you can see what it is showing it from. Then print word will now show you this is a string. So instead of having this ch where each characters will be shown, you would have this. So I'm sure we understand that. So just as we have for loop, it can work with a string, it can work with list, It can also work with tuples. So we know that to create a tuple, I will have to use our okay, so we know that to create a tuple, we have to make use of parentheses and then a comma. So same thing that we use in list, that we use in string, that is what we are now going to imbibe into this tuple. Still the same syntax for numbers in our tuple that we created. In fact, if you do not want to use number, you can use for n in the name of your tuple, just like we did for I in the name of your list, for values in your list, just like we did for characters in your string. Now we are now still doing what? For num in your tuple. So it will now iterate through it and then print what? Each of those values for you. So I hope you understand that now. So let's say you have a list of tuples. You have a list of tuples at index 0. You have 1, 2, 1, you have 3, 4, and so on. So you now want to print them. So you can, what you would just do, still the same thing. For x in, or for value in, or for numbers in the name of the list of tuples, print x. Then you know that it will keep on, it will iterate through all the numbers and then give you the result. It will iterate through all the tuples rather and then give you the result. So let's say you have this. Yes, so the first tuple at index 0 will be returned. The second one at index 1 will be returned. This, and then this. All right. So I'm sure we can also do this with range, just as we were taught here. Yes. So we can also do for x in list of tuples. Yes, so we have this. This is our tuple, so you don't get it mixed up, right? We have this list of tuples here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we now want to print each tuples contained in this list of tuples, right? So that is why you can see that we are doing for x in, just like we did for I in our list, and for C in our string. Now we are now doing for x in our what? List of tuples. Print each tuple contained in this list. So that is what you can see there. 1, 2, 3, 4 being printed. So now let's say you now want to print the first value. You want to print the first value in each tuple. So you want to print the first value in each tuple. You want to see the first value in each tuple. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, right? You can do this. So you want to print the first value in each tuple. You can do for x in list of tuple. Print what? The values at index 0. You know that this is a tuple, another tuple, another tuple, another tuple. You can see my screen. So you want to print the value at index 0 for each tuple. You can see that. So I want to give you a classwork now. If this is what you use, what you can see on my screen to create to print the values at index 0, right? So how would you print the values at index 1? So that means how would you see 2, 4, 6, 8, 10? So let's have your responses in the chat. All right, great response from Ogun Nike. Great response from, so it should be 1. So since we have this list of tuples, we can see how to print exactly. Great one. We are almost done. We are even past the time for closing. We are almost done. We just have some few things and then we are done with today's class. We just have continue and then you follow up with the dictionaries and then we are done with the class for today. Okay, so what if you want to print this without the parentheses there, right? You want to print this, you can just say for num1 and num2 in our list of tuples, which is this. So print num1 and you're also printing the num2 and then you're separating it by a new line. So that's why I'm printing the new line. In Python, to add a new line to it, you can use your slash and then the n. So if you don't want the parentheses to be shown, instead of saying for x in list of tuples, print x, you can say for num1, num2 in list of tuples, print num1, print num2, and then you add the new line to it. So just like we can use a for loop in a list that you saw, just like you can use it in a string, and just like you saw that we used it with tuples, we can also use it with dictionaries. So my dictionary, we know that from yesterday's class, we know that to create a new dictionary, we can use our words curly braces, and then we have the key and then the value, then the key and the value, the key and the value. So you should remember that dictionary is what? Unordered. So dictionary is unordered. So just like we did for X in your list, for I in strings, for I in your tuple, you can also do what? For items in your word dictionary. I'm sure we should be bosses of this syntax now. So for item in dictionary, in the dictionary that we created, so we are creating a new dictionary now named my dictionary. My dictionary. And then, so for items in your dictionary, you want to print what? Our item. So for item in your dictionary, you print your item. But wow, we are not having the items A, which is 1, B, which is 2, C, which is 3, being displayed. What is going on, right? So when you just do for items in your dictionary, right, print item, you only get the keys returned. So it's not like, for item can be anything. It can be for I. I'm sure we are all conversant with that now. It can be for B. It can be for anything you like in your dictionary, right? So it is not. Wow, so sorry about that, Godwin. I treated it that the attendance is going to close 12 p.m. on dot, and I think it was sent to the chat severally. So if you want to see the values contained in your dictionary, you have to do for K in what? Your dictionary dot values. I'm sure we can remember this dot values. Yes, I'm sure you can remember dot values from yesterday's class, right? To see the values in your dictionary. So whenever you do for K in your dictionary dot values, it can even be for I, it can be for anything. It's just a placeholder. It can be any variable you put works. So for K, for I, for B, for items for anything, it works, right? It can be anything. So for I in your dictionary dot values, meaning you're interested in seeing the values of this dictionary, which is when you see what? 1, 2, 3. You see that you get 1, 2, 3 returned. So if you want to see the keys, right? The keys, only the keys of your dictionary. You can see here, we are trying to see both the keys and then the value. So we are doing for K in your dictionary dot keys. Print K would only print what? The keys. That's why you can see that here we have A, B, C. But now we want to also see the value. And from yesterday's class, we were taught that to access the value of a key, you can put what? The name of your dictionary, then the name of the what? Key, right? In square braces, which is what is still going on here. So okay, so that you don't get confused. Here we are printing what? The keys. You can see A, B, C. You can see that we have the keys to our in our dictionary. So now we want to see not just the keys, but the value of each keys. And we know that to access the value in a key, we have to use what? My dictionary and then what? The key. So, and we know that K returns what? Each key of the dictionary. So that's why you can see that now we are now having both the key and the value being returned. Yes, dot items. We are going there. Great to see that we remembered some of the functions, right, that was used in yesterday's class. Great one. The keys. Okay. Let me explain, continue, and then so that those that want to leave the class can leave, and then we can end. So I'm coming back to your questions. So for continue, just like we have the break keyword, we also have continue. We know that given a specific condition, the break would make sure that once that condition is met, it will what? Break out of the loop. But for continue, what continue does is that it helps to it skips an iteration. So it is the opposite of break. You won't see it, but it is going to skip an iteration in simple terms, in basic terms. Continue, we just skip that. You know that for break, if that condition is met, it's going to what? Break out of the loop. But for continue, once the condition is met, it is what? Skip that. So for when we use break, I'll go and copy that code and bring it here so that you can see the difference too. So using this, we have for our numbers in scores, of course, we are bosses in this. No, for norm in scores, if we just do, okay, let me copy this to another cell. Yes. So for norm in scores, if we say print norm, yes. So for norm in scores, yes, for norm in scores, if you say print norm, we know we are going to get 30, 40, 50, 60, right? We are bosses, we know this already. I can say for I in scores, I can change it. So just to tell you that, in fact, I can say for M in scores. So you can see that for ME score, so it will still give you a 30, 40, 50, 60. But now I do not want the number 50 to show, right? For NOMI scores, then I say if number is equal to what? 50, continue. That is, keep that number. That is what continue does in the simplest term. That is what continue. It should just keep it so that when we run this now, you get what? 30, 40, 60. You can see that's what? 50 is kept. What if I change this to 40? You can see that you get what? 30, 50, 60. So the same way you can also do this for a string. So for letter in code, if the letter is a continue, just keep it. But break will what? Break out of the loop. But continue will just keep that iteration. So yeah, we've been able to cover everything that we're able to cover in today's class. Sorry for taking a whole 17 minutes out of your time. That'll be all for today. I'm sure the recording will be up. The recording for today's class, you'll be able to access it. I would also send the assignments for today before the end of today. Yeah, so thank you all for joining today's class. This brings us to the end. Thank you. I hope you understood everything that was done today. Of course, your message will be relayed email Inyang. Thank you very much for joining, and bye.
With AI, our foundation just recently put out a challenge to ask for ideas about using an AI to reduce inequity. And we reached out and got 1,300 proposals, and half of those came from Africa. And my next visit back to the continent, which will be in October in Senegal, we'll have a chance to celebrate the winners of that contest that that looked very, very promising.